Hello and welcome to the Dare to Differentiate live show. The purpose of the show is to help you rise up, raise your standards, and reach your next level. All right, today's episode is Women in Leadership Panel. I am so delighted that you're here. I apologize that we started off a little bit late. We had some technical difficulties and we had to start this new stream here. I hope you guys are catching on. For those who are watching, feel free to reshare this link to others on my old post as well. But we are here live. So whether you're tuning live or watching the replay, I am so delighted and grateful that you're here. Let me know in the comment where you are from. And I want to hear from you guys. Is this your first time watching my show? If it is, type in first time. If you've been here since the beginning of January, coming on live with me every week, type in big fan. I want to hear from you guys as well. This is the last episode of season 1. So thank you for being here. And I'm so excited being here today with my amazing guest speakers to end this episode on a bang here. So thank you, thank you, thank you. So I'm Diana YK Chan. I'm the founder of My Markability, where I help ambitious professionals, leaders, and executives to find a meaningful career, navigate change, and differentiate as top talent to get hired and earn more. So super excited to be here today. So what we're going to cover today is we're going to cover, I'm just going to put it like here. Here's what we're going to cover today is we're going to be talking about my three executive leaders, their career advancement journey, and advice on tips related to career planning, personal branding, networking, interview prep, confidence, and leadership. Are you guys excited or what? Type in excited in the chat room if you're excited here. I have to tell you, my heart right now is pounding so quickly because, we had all the technical issues, but I think things are working right now. I see everyone here with me and I see the audience here as well. Big fan. Awesome. Oh my goodness. Hi, Shaq. All right. Hi, Simone. Serlina, thank you. First time here. Welcome, guys. Thank you so much for being here. I'm so glad to have you guys there. Okay. So some housekeeping first is that replay will be available. You can catch it on my YouTube channel at Diana YK Chan. I will be adding timestamps later on as well so that you can watch at certain segments. Okay. And I really want to encourage you to engage with us all. Feel free to click like and comment anytime. Share with us your thoughts, your key learnings and questions. Type in #GoSimrat. She is my dear friend who is assisting backstage. She's my live training producer and managing all the chat room here and all my display captions. So thank you so much, Simrat, for being here to support me as well. Okay. The other is show your appreciation. Okay. My guests are backstage already. Okay. Share your kind words to show your support. This is all their first time coming live with me on LinkedIn Live, YouTube Live, and Facebook Live there. Okay. So I want you to type in these hashtags here. Go Inthida, go Lori, go Susy. Or type in #woman in leadership. Let's raise their vibrational energy up so that we can show that love and support to them as well. Okay, so let's do that there. Okay, yes, let's really raise that vibrational energy up here. Okay, wow, great to see some familiar faces. Oh my God, my previous speaker, Johan, is here as well too. Awesome, awesome. Okay, so you guys caught on, found the new link. Amazing. Okay, so let me introduce you to our guest speakers before I bring them on. Okay, so first up, we have Inthida who's coming on. Inthida is Vice President of Operations at PPIBenefits, a subsidiary of IA Financial Group. She recently landed a next level brand new role as COO at Webware.io. Super proud of her, starting end of April. With 15 years of experience across the insurance, tech, consulting, and telecom sectors, she has worn many different hats and gained valuable insights into what it takes to successfully launch new businesses and solutions, empower diverse teams, and drive massive growth in both corporate and startup environments. Inthida is a coach and mentor to hundreds of professionals and advisor to several emerging startups. She's also an active champion and advocate for diversity and inclusion and the advancement of women in leadership. She's also a dear friend of mine where I've known her for over a decade. All right, our next speaker is Rayner. Lori is Vice President of Marketing for Wealth and Personal Banking at HSBC Bank Canada. She was recently promoted from Vice President of Marketing, Brand Strategy, Planning, and Operations. Lori is a seasoned executive leader who has helped Canadian and global companies achieve aggressive business targets and maximize brand growth through a customer-centric approach. Laurie has won multiple industry awards and is recognized as an expert in maximizing marketing effectiveness and accelerating return on investment. And our last speaker, Susy Martins. Susy is also a dear friend of mine. I did my MBA with her as well. I've known her for over 10 years. Susy is the global people and culture head at a fast-growing startup, ApplyBoard. She has more than 15 years of experience in global, regional, and country roles. Having worked and led teams in North America, Europe, South America, and Asia, Susy brings a broad global perspective to the teams she leads. Her subject matter expertise includes operational excellence, transformational leadership, project management, finance, audit, governance, employee engagement, and global people leadership skills. Her business acumen and passion for volunteerism have been recognized through her board appointments and career progression across multiple functional areas and geographies in large multinationals throughout her career at GE, 3M, Allianz, and Manulife. So let's welcome my guest speakers on stage. Let's type in women in leadership here. All right, let's bring them on. Hey, Inthida.
Hello.
Hey, Laurie.
Hi.
Hi, everyone.
Welcome. Thank you so much for being here. Oh my gosh, I love it. Welcome. Oh my gosh, it's like a special day. Today's my 10-year wedding anniversary as well. So I had my friends here with me.
Yay.
So super excited to have you guys here. Really appreciate your time. And how are you guys feeling?
Good.
Amazing.
Excited.
I feel like I'm on with Tony Robbins, right? We're going for it, like pound that like button.
Yeah, give some like and emojis as well. I have to tell a quick story, Joe, before I dive in here. Like on my wedding day, my husband, like we're like complete opposites. Like, yeah, on my wedding day, he gave me like a dozen emojis to show his excitement of our wedding day. And then I just double check your settings to make sure that you can hear us there from the audio there. Okay, so I'm going to start off with some questions, rapid fire questions, just to warm us up before we dive into the discussion here. How's that? So let's do some rapid fire questions here. What are your...
connected? I can't hear anybody, sadly. I'm having such technical issues.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear. Let's see here. Let me one sec. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So give me one sec. All right. Simmer, I'll let you do the troubleshooting here. Okay. Okay. So what are your top 3 core values? Susy, why don't we start with you first? What are your top 3 core values?
Sure. I was thinking about this yesterday, and I think number one, like hands down, is integrity, right? Like everything you do is, has to be high integrity, right? In terms of like for me, for my personal life as well as work. And I think also I'm very positive, and one of my key differentiators is also that I'm very open to feedback.
Oh, awesome. Amazing. What about you, Laurie?
I share Susy's integrity as my number 1 core value as well. I really believe the importance of treating people as you wish to be treated and doing and knowing what you feel is right, both personally and professionally. It's very important to me and important I work in that culture. 2 other quick ones. One is growth and achievement, always looking to evolve and learn. And then lastly, passion. I believe when you do what you're passionate about, happiness and success follows. So that's always been core values I've lived by.
Amazing. And what are you known for? What do people come to you for? Laurie, why don't you start?
Sure. So first and foremost, obviously being in marketing, one thing I am known for is having strong commercial acumen. So understanding, there's a lot of great ideas that come by a marketer's desk, very creative, but not all of them align to your business strategy, and not all of them are going to generate return for the business. So I have a strong understanding of the numbers, the business operations, and what's going to accelerate ROI for the business.
Ooh, love that. What about you, Susy?
I think I'm more of a generalist background. So I have kind of more of a broad brush across different areas, but I'm known to like just be, someone who gets things done, right? Very transparent, very much team player. And I would say high energy. Like if I go back and I think about what all my teams say, like a lot of it's how you get it done. And I think that's probably for sure one of my classic marks.
Nice. What do you do for self-care, Susy, and mental health?
I read this yesterday and I was like, what do I do? So I was like, I would say the one thing that I do religiously is catch up on sleep on the weekend. This is like for me, non-negotiable to sleep in on the weekend, like Saturday, Sunday, if I can. Like I always kind of try to catch up, we're busy. We go 100 miles an hour with our families and with work all week. So definitely that's my number one self-care.
Yeah. And you work crazy hours too. I know that. What about you, Laurie?
Two things I do. One, I think everyone can do. I actually listen to my favorite songs when I'm getting ready in the morning, and it just kind of calms me down, puts me in the right mindset, probably puts me in a positive mood. And the other one is running. I do love running. It's an outlet for me. I will share one thing during COVID that I'm very proud of is I ran my first half marathon. I always thought it was not possible with my work and my kids. I just didn't think I had the time. But my kilometers kept increasing and I did it. So I was really proud of that.
Oh, good for you, taking care of your health there. So let's move on and talk about what are your guiding principles in managing and advancing your career? And Laurie, I know for you, you've been at HSBC for over a decade. Like, what are some of your guiding principles?
My first guiding principle is that you own your career. It is in your hands. It is your accountability. You need to be vocal. It is on you. So I think it's very important that you lean into that. You take opportunities, you vocalize what your goals are, as well as set goals and plans to achieve them. They can be little or small, but you really need to have a plan. It's not just going to happen and come together. You need to be purposeful in your actions.
Oh, I love that. Purposeful action. Hashtag that. Purposeful actions here. Susy, what about you?
I think for every job, and this is what I always tell, folks when they ask me this, like, what do you think you need to do to be successful and keep on moving? And I would say you always have to think that your job is the most important job, right? Like if you think your job's important, then everyone else will. So I think you need to, that means knowing your area, being an expert in what you're doing, right? And giving it 110%. So I think that, if you think what you're doing is important, everybody will feel that too. And that will guide you straight through your career and to your next step.
Oh, I love that. It's just like having that conviction and passion so that you can also influence others as a leader as well, right? Yeah, amazing. All right, thank you. Okay, looks like, guys, we won't be able to have Inthida join. She's having some audio issues, so unfortunately, that's too bad. She won't be able to join us today, but I'll have her again on another show there. So Susy and Laura, we're going to be just chatting with you two today here. So we're going to dive in right now to talk about their career journey, to really listen to her learn more about some lessons and then move some tips and advice for you guys here. So the first question here is, tell us about a career-defining moment that changed the trajectory of your career. What were the decisions made and what were the lessons learned? So why don't we start off with Laurie here?
Sure. Thanks, Diana. So I was thinking about this, and one that's maybe a bit more recent. When I came back from my second mat leave, I was offered to go into a very similar role in what I was doing before, more of a marketing communications, probably more traditional marketing role, and leading the team there. Or there was a marketing operations role. So that looks after governance, budgets, strategy, planning, different area than I was used to and spent a lot of my career in. So the comfort zone would have been going to marketing communications, but I took the leap. I took the marketing operations role. I was ready for a change. I was ready for a challenge. A lot of people were very surprised because I had such passion for the creative side, but I equally loved the operational side. And I know without that background, I wouldn't be in my role that I'm in today. You really need to have both sides of the equation to do this.
That's great to hear. What about you, Susy?
I thought about that too. Like in terms of career defining, there's always so many, right? And I think for me, I've switched. Like I started off in customer service, I switched to finance. I switched back to HR. I've been in strategy, etc. And I thought about telling those stories, but then I landed on actually the most defining career moment for me was my first job, right? Like I think I grew up in a small town. My parents were like immigrants to Canada. I grew up with part-time jobs working like corn detasseling. You can Google that, right? And working in a grocery store, right? And I went to business school, and all of my peers, their parents were working in banks, and they knew what management consulting was when I was in business school. I had no idea. So then I was like, how am I going to get a job? So I think the biggest career defining for me was my first internship. And what I did was like, at that time, there was actually binders. So like paper in a binder. Like I actually went to career management office, and I was like, I really would like to go global. right? And I went and opened up our alumni binder at the school and started looking like, maybe I could go to Fiji, maybe I could go to Australia, maybe Brazil. I want to get this international experience. And I reached out to alumni, and I ended up creating an internship in Australia. So when I went, and best negotiation of my life, I negotiated a friend. I went with a friend to Sydney for 5 months between third and fourth year. I actually created an ongoing, like we called it the Asia Pacific scholarship program for the next 6 years for students to come. And I always think, Stefan, Wisniewski, he was the alumni that he opened his arms, right? And I always tell him, I was like, you gave me every job I ever had because you gave me the chance to actually go and learn something, right? And I remember bobbling, and not knowing how to do things. And he taught us a lot of good lessons, and he was an active coach. And I think I learned a lot there, like one from like taking that first step in my career, and then two, how to help someone else, right? Like I think sometimes you have to give other people a hand too. So I always will try to be helpful when people reach out for sure, because I got that help too.
Yeah. Oh, I love that story. It sounds like you just took action. You were bold. You're bold, took action, and make the ask. You make the ask to make it happen there. And I love that you made that international career of yours there. Amazing, amazing. All right. So my next question is, let me see here. What's the biggest challenge you faced in your career? I know we all face challenges here. Like, how did you navigate it? Did you face any gender stereotypes or bias there? One of the common things I hear a lot right now with the people I work with, the people I get on calls with, for those who are working, the challenge that I often hear is, the very demanding workload or toxic environment, toxic boss. And I wanted to tell you a little bit some of the challenges you face and how you navigate those as a leader there. So why don't we start with Lori?
I thought about this one a lot, and I'll be honest with you, I'll put my hand up to say my biggest challenge has actually been myself. My inner voice, making sure, coming with confidence, second guessing yourself. And I was actually at a session 2 days ago where this was one of the topics about female leaders. And another executive shared some insights that they had that many women don't necessarily go for roles because of confidence. And they feel that when they see a job opportunity, they need to check off every box before they will apply versus, and I don't want to gender stereotype, but the insights showed that men were more likely, if they knew 25%, that they would still apply and grow into that role, and they're more willing to put their hand up versus females. And I feel like I definitely have fallen into the category at times. So how do I navigate that? I still practice this, I still work on this and still evolving, but I do have a list of things that I know that I'm good at, that I do review. I may take time to write down my worries or where I don't feel confident, and then I try and put them aside or try and put a plan together to work on that. So at least I have an action plan going forward. But, I've been so fortunate that I've had so many supporters and mentors and sponsors throughout the year that have lifted me up, and peers when I've needed it. I see some friends today on the chat, which I'm so thankful for that support. Yeah. And I think that's been the difference. And I wanted to be authentic and share that. I think a lot of people look at leaders and they think, oh, they have it all together, they're confident all the time. It's not the case. I've even heard CEOs share similar stories. And I just want you to know, everyone kind of feels that. It's all how you deal with it and you move forward from it.
Yeah. Oh, thank you for that authenticity there. I really appreciate that. Susy, what about you? What's the biggest challenge you faced in your career?
When I look back, I think that for me, like in my 20s, I decided to take a shift, right? I mentioned earlier that I was in customer service, and I started in, the big multinational career, right? Started off with 3M, then I went to GE, and I went international. And I think that was the biggest challenge, right? Like I decided, okay, I'm going to do this. I want to learn finance. I want to learn audit. I'm going to move to Europe, right? And this is going to be amazing. I'm going to be in Europe, and I stayed there for the rest of my 20s. But that shift, I think is important to talk about, because everybody's like, oh, I want to go international and I want to do this and I want to do that, right? It's not that easy, right? Like there's always that tough settling in period. And I think when I switched, I was, 23, 24 years old. I didn't know anyone. I was in the Netherlands. I'd switched to finance. I was dealing with like big asks, $1 million of bookings, and an area like I was familiar with nothing, right? I didn't know anyone, didn't know the company, didn't know the functional area, right? And then you start thinking like, what have I done, right? I remember calling my mom on the first day I was there and just being like, I don't know if this is the right thing, right? And I think, I guess why share this story? And I think it's because one, like when things look like this sexy thing of going abroad, like you're still going to have that tough settling in period. There's lots of, I guess, character building through all of that, right? And you have to go through a trough sometimes to come out on the other side, right? You have to go through all those feelings of kind of like, there is going to be an uncomfortable period. You're going to have to work hard. You're going to have to settle in, right? So I think, and this is true in everybody's careers, like careers just don't happen, right? Like I'm sure Lori works really hard and she's very smart, right? And she's pivoted and she's thoughtful as she's worked through her career. And I think all of these defining moments are when you get stuck in this trough, you're like, oh man, what have I done and how am I going to get out of this? But it's being confident and kind of seeing yourself, like I was talking about this last week, like tell yourself a positive story. You know, you're in the trough, you say, no, I'm going to get out of this. I'm going to be awesome at finance. I'm going to learn this, right? And I'm going to get to the next step, right? So yeah, make little goals and move forward. Yeah.
I love that. Like you just like reframe your mindset, you know, tell yourself a positive story, right? That's so key because then it's all about how you rise back up, how you get back up to, you know, to change the outcome of it as well. So thank you for sharing that lesson. I want you guys to type that in as well, like to tell yourself a positive story and reframe all that. Hi, that's really key there. So let's move on to the next question here. Oh, this is a good one. Both of you landed an executive next level leadership position during pandemic. How did that happen? And perhaps also share with the audience, like, you know, what's the scope of your work, what you do today there. Let's start with Susie. Yeah, let's start with Susie here.
Sure. I'll try to keep this one brief. So, you know, if you guys have looked at my LinkedIn or kind of looked at my career journey, I worked at Manulife for about 11 years and I had been growing, you know, I'd moved around different functional areas, also stayed in HR for a long time there and was having a great run. And I loved being there. And, you know, and I had the opportunity to basically, after being in HR for some years, to kind of be brought back into the business side, right? To go work at Allianz. And I took a job there running, you know, it was like 400, 600 people on the claim side. And in between those two jobs, right? And this is kind of in the last couple years, and this is why it's during the pandemic story, is that I kept on seeing in the news, right? Like ApplyBoard, where I work now, right? It's like, and I live in Kitchener, and I'm like, what is ApplyBoard? Like, looks so cool. Like these three brothers, like, what are they doing? They're in the academic space, right? And I just wanted to know more, right? So in between actually switching from one job to the other, and I actually just reached out on LinkedIn to the COO, like now my current boss. And I said, you know what, you know, I'd love to spend time with you and learn more about the company. And it's an amazing company, right? The mission is to educate the world, right? And he was talking about how they built it up. And then at the end, he's like, well, what do you want from me? And I said, nothing. Like, I have a job. Like, I just got another job. I am a layer. Like, I'd spent like a decade at my last company. I had no interest in, like, you know, getting a job when I just got another job, right? But I was just so excited to learn about what they were doing. And anyways, I said, but eventually, if you ever have like the head of HR globally or like head of ops globally, like I would be so excited to hear about that in the future. And then, you know, off I went, and I went to Allianz, and I loved Allianz. I worked with an awesome leadership team, such a cool company. And we were doing so many different like digital transformations. And then this opportunity kind of, you know, leveled that, you know, came up that there's going to be like a head of HR. And I thought, wow, opportunity only knocks once. Like, how could I not do this? Like, this job is like so perfect for me. It's like such an amazing company, an amazing mission. It's exactly, you know, what I've dreamt about doing. And it kind of brought together all of my skill sets. And then that's how it happened, right? It kind of, I wasn't really looking for it. It kind of, you know, it came from like just having a conversation, being curious myself in terms of like these companies and things that I'm seeing, you know, kind of out there in social media, in the news, right? And connecting myself to it. So just a little fun story about like reaching out and just talking to people when you're interested, and just how it can kind of become something else later.
Oh my God, I love that story, Susie. Like, curiosity, being proactive, paying attention what's happening in the news as well, and starting a conversation. Like, you just never know how an opportunity may unfold just by having a conversation here. So way to go, Susie. I'm so proud of you as well, making that pivot. But what I'm also hearing is you've also set the vision intention in terms of your aspiration as well, like having that dream and aspiration. In a way, it's also putting it out there, manifesting the opportunity and letting people know that this is something you would be interested in if it comes up there. So, you know, part of it is also sharing and voicing your dreams with others as well there. So thank you for sharing that. So we have Inthida's back as well. Yay, welcome back. Thank you. Awesome. So let me start with Lori first, so we warm Inthida up as she joins us after Lori here. So Lori, you're next. So tell us a little bit about how you landed your next level position.
Yeah, some parallels to Susy in different ways though, because I landed my position with my current company, HSBC. So this role that I'm in has always been the goal. It's funny, even when I started my first role, I remember meeting with HR, they were just doing development discussions and them asking, what do you want? I'm like, I want this role. And they're like, really? And, I was quite junior in my role at the time. They told me, keep telling people, like, be vocal. And I assumed everyone on the team wanted this role, but they said, no, not everybody does, but keep being vocal on it. And through the years I progressed, I kind of knew, I've kind of moved around through marketing, kind of becoming a marketing generalist versus other functions of the business. So understanding, every role of the team. And as I shared, I had done the marketing operations role. Prior to the pandemic hitting, I have had discussions with senior leaders and executives at the bank to be very intentional to tell them, this type of role is my aspiration. I knew it wasn't going to be immediate, and I wasn't asking for it to be immediate. I was just asking for feedback on how I could be a top candidate, and what they were looking for when such a role become available. When COVID hit, to be honest, I never imagined that a year later I'd be sitting here. I think the role came up sooner than I anticipated. The company went through a reorg through marketing, and there was now a head of Canada role. So I did go for it. And after I submitted my resume, I'm going to be honest, and this isn't just a plug for Diana, but my first phone call literally right after hitting send was to Diana. And I knew this was going to be a competitive interview, even though I was an internal candidate. I knew there was other candidates at the table, very seasoned, very worthy as well. And so Diana knew that I was going in, and I was going in fighting for this role, and going in hard. And that's what I did. I prepared. I spent weeks, crunching numbers, prepping questions, knowing what my story was, really, really honing into all of Diana's tips and leveraging that. And I will tell you, I had multiple interviews, some of them tougher than others, but every one of them I walked out, I felt very prepared, and felt very confident. I knew no matter what the outcome of this decision was, that I had, given it my all. And that I had given it my all, and I was very proud of that. And I landed the role, which I'm very proud of. And this has been a goal of mine for a very long time. So it's been a big accomplishment, and something I'm proud of for sure.
Oh, amazing. I'm so proud of you, Lori. Like, the consistent theme I'm hearing here, again, is sharing it, voicing it. You took proactive action in managing your career as well to put your best foot forward. You knew, even though it was an internal role, right? You didn't take it for granted that this is mine, but you actually put your best foot forward to present yourself of why you are the best candidate to hire. And I talk about this a lot, right? Whether it's internal, external, even though you're so close and know that you are a top candidate, you have to put your best foot forward, bring your A game as well. Like, we don't take it for granted that the role is yours there. So thank you for sharing that story. And I love it. It's so different. Like, one is an internal, another external. So let's bring Inthida on board here. So Inthida, welcome. Thank you for being here. Welcome.
Thank you for being so patient. I'm so sorry. And I finally figured it out after 3 devices and multiple attempts, but let's forget about that.
Yeah, you are here. That's all that matters. Yes. So I'm going to bring in like a 3-in-1 question. Maybe we can start out like what you're known for, and what your guiding principles are. And then I wanted you to dive in like how you landed your latest role that you're starting next month there.
Okay, so what I'm known for, I think 3 things. One is connections. I'm really about relationship building and making great connection with the team members, vendors, partners, all of that. I think I've built a reputation for being able to really create lasting relationships and always look for the win-win in all that I do. The second thing I would say is my ability to pretty much solve any problem and take it from a very abstract element to an executional element. So I think I've built my career in building and creating new products or services or ideas that were just a concept, and being able to really nail it down to this is what it means from a vision standpoint to all the work stream and all the things that need to happen to make it work. Mm-hmm. And I would say the third thing, so the execution and the creating kind of go together. And I think the last element would be all about continuous improvement. I have a thing where if I see elements that are not efficient or could be done better, I just naturally gravitate towards like, how can we make this better? How can we automate? How can we make it more efficient? Even when I'm outside of work and I go to like a coffee shop and I notice things, it's like, oh my goodness, how can we make this better? So my mind naturally gravitates towards those elements.
I love that. Continuous improvement, right? You're always looking for ways to make things better there. So let's talk about how you landed this brand new position as a COO of webware.io. How did that happen? Like, what's the scope of your work? I know, let's talk about that, because I know a lot of your roles are through relationship building and networking and on LinkedIn as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's funny because obviously you can land a role in multiple ways, networking being one of the most common ways. And I think for me, ever since I kind of left TELUS, all the roles I've had afterwards have all been about other people coming to me. And I think it's really speaking about my reputation and just kind of the networking through other people. So when I worked at Rogers, it was, they approached me, the senior vice president approached me. When I went to another tech startup, it was the same thing. The founders approached me. My role at PPI, same thing. The president approached me because we had the opportunity to work together, and he was a client. And then the same thing happened here, where the CEO kind of found me on LinkedIn. So I think it speaks to maybe what kind of brand I have out there. And
oh, can't hear you. Oh, okay. Another technical issue here. Okay, so.
Oh my God.
Oh, you're back.
I'm back. I'm so sorry.
Okay, you're back.
This doesn't work well on the phone. That's not what I anticipated. So yes, I'm super excited. I'm wrapping up my role at PPI right now. It was a great opportunity, and now I'm going to be the COO at Webware.io, which is a web services and done for you kind of website services and marketing, digital marketing.
Yeah.
So I'm really excited. It's all about continuing to expand my scope and the things that I love to do.
Amazing. Amazing. So guys, I want you to type in here, like some of the key learnings I'm hearing right now, the importance of personal branding and your reputation, how that really matters, and how when someone reaches out to you on LinkedIn or just throughout, it may seem so random, but respond back and be curious. So like in Inthida's case, like multiple times people reached out to her on LinkedIn. Like she could have just ignored it, and these opportunities would not have had happen. And so I think it's so important to start a conversation. A lot of times I hear people saying, "Oh, I'm so afraid of responding. What should I say? Should it be formal?" You just have to be curious. I think that's important. Key learning there. So let's move into the next question, which I get from a lot of people. Like, all of you made this pivot during a pandemic. How to assess whether it's the right career move? What's the difference between working at a large corporation versus a tech startup? So Susy, why don't we start with you there?
I think, those are two different questions, right? For me, like, I think that, how do you know you're making the right move? I'm a big gut feel person. You know what I mean? One, like, you need to make sure that you are also interviewing the company, right? When you're interviewing that team, right? Like, are you going to be a fit with that leadership team, right? Are you going to be a good fit with your leader, your future leader, the peers? You get to meet a lot of people, ask to meet other people, right? I always right now, obviously I'm overseeing people and culture. So we interview a lot. And I always say, hey, I want you to meet more people in our team, because sometimes you want to go kind of quick with the interviews, but I think it's an opportunity both ways. So I'd encourage you there in terms of fit would be a number one thing to think about as you're moving. And I think the second thing that I would think about is, for me at this point in my career, it's really about alignment and interest, right? Like, and it always has been. Like, I have to believe in what I'm doing. I could never work in a role or for a company that I don't believe in, right? I always feel like I've worked in like companies that I can be proud of every day. All day long, I'm proud of every company I've worked for, right? So I would never join if I can't put my brand next to theirs. So I think that that's a really important one for me.
Amazing.
For the tech one, what was your other question, Diana? It was like
the difference, because you went from big companies to like a startup. Like, what's been the biggest transition for you? Like, we're from a very big company to a smaller company that's fast growing as well. It's that. your experience?
It's a fun question. So I've been here for about 6 months, right? And the company, let's be clear, like last year, this time, probably 300 employees. This year, we're nearing 1,000, right? So it is like, strap on your backpack and you're like a rocket ship, right? Like it's going so fast. It went from basically, really like, just a startup, right? Like to getting almost a medium-sized business, right? But it's still like in startup timelines, right? So I think, so if you're in a corporation, I've worked in companies that are 100 years old, right? And a lot of it's about, having that really good strategic thinking. Like it's different challenges, right? It's a lot of the matrix, it's global. There's all these different things you need to figure out. But generally, there's a lot of specialists already in place in a lot of the different functional areas and in the business, right? Everything's already stood up, right? And you're evolving with projects, you're rationalizing all those things. Once you go to a startup, it's kind of like there's 4 things in place. They might not have been the 4 things you put in place if you actually built it from scratch. Like if you built a house, you'd put the foundation and then you'd start building the wall, stick in the window, whatever the right order is, right? Like this is kind of like the windows there and the chimney's in place, right? And then there's a piece of the foundation. So you're like, what? So I think you just have to roll with it. I think when you're in the startup world, like I think for me, my learning here is just like you roll with it and you get to that perfect house that you're trying to build, but you have to realize you're not going to start with a plan that goes from A to Z, and you have to fit for purpose, right size what you're doing, right, and move fast. So I think it's fun. It's exciting, right? Like to do something like this and to actually take all the dreams you always had of thinking like that, right? And it's just, there's a lot of blue sky there. So now's your chance, like as you're rolling out, as you do regular cycles in your job, you're actually rolling them out at the same time. So
amazing.
Yep.
You know what I think it's great as I'm hearing from you is your attitude towards this of how, it's just so exciting, right? The growth, right? Going from like 300 people to like over 1,000 people in the next several months. And it's just going to be in growth mode and just building from scratch here. So I love that. Let's build on that, Inthida, of your experience as well, going from big company to, like you went also to like startup to also this company here. Let's talk about your experience.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I will echo like Susy's comments. I think a big company has, set processes. They're more structured. Everything's kind of like there's departments set for certain things. And then you go into a startup where I was like less than 10 people when I joined. I think I was employee number 6 or something. And so nothing really exists. And you really have to be adaptable and fluid in making the processes and adapting as you continue to grow and get more clients, more people on the team. It's a
Oh. You guys can't hear her? Can I hear her? Oh, there, you're back. Oh, we can't hear you now. Oh, darn it. We can't hear you. Are you back? Okay. Lori, you're up. How did you assess whether it was the right career move for you as you move up in your career?
I have to echo everything that Susy said. The gut, that my gut has always played a key role in my decision making. And oftentimes, you're going to go to people for advice, and they're very well intended and definitely, ask for people's advice. But at the end of the day, they're probably going to give you the advice that's best for them and their personal journey that they've been on. And you do need to listen to your heart and what's important to you. So, your family, your values, as Susy said, what brand she wants to personally align to. Does it fit? Does your work-life flexibility fit? I always look for 3 key things when looking at roles. One is the organization. I like a fast-paced environment. I probably couldn't work in slow, even if it was the greatest job. The environment is really important to me. People who value the speak up culture. Those are areas that I thrive in. And without it, I don't think I'd thrive or do well in my role. The actual role itself. If I am comfortable and if I feel like, I can do this role, no problem, like hands behind my back, it's not the right role to go into. That's not it for me. I always want that growth. I always want to feel nervous. If I'm not nervous taking a new role, it's not the right role for me. And lastly, as Susy mentioned, the manager. Manager is very important. There's someone who you're going to lean on, someone who's going to advocate for you, and also empower you. So that is critical that they're also there and supportive.
Yeah, that's a great insight. And I want to encourage you guys, what I'm hearing is the importance is just knowing what your preferences are. So having your criteria of what's important to you in terms of the environment fit, role fit, culture fit, Those are things that you really need to evaluate to help you identify your next career move there. So thank you for sharing those insights as well. Like it's an exercise I always get everyone to do is like, what's your evaluation criteria to determine fit? As much as the employer is interviewing you, you are interviewing the employer and the opportunity because you are planning your future career there. All right. So awesome. Thank you for sharing that, guys. So let's move into some advice questions now. And the audience, if you guys have any questions, feel free to type it in as well. So let's start with how to build your brand, reputation, and network. I know you guys had a little bit of this. Like, what are some of those actionable advice that you have on building that? And what are some of your key success factors there? So Susy, why don't we start with you there?
Sure. How to build your brand. So I think number one, you need to be consistent. So you can't have a brand if you're all over the place, right? So I think that, for me, I'm always consistent. And I think that carries with you and it'll define who you are. Like those earlier values where Diana's like, what would you say are your most important values or what you're known for? Those come from being consistent, right? Day in, day out, and I think another one that I would say too, to build your brand, like for me, I think you need to be generous, right? Like in terms of being a leader as a person, if you want to build your brand, you need to make time. It takes time to be good at something. And it also takes time to build relationships, right? So invest in people, right? Invest, in time in those discussions, understanding where people are coming from. I think that helps build your brand. And I think another thing is, everybody comes in to do a good job, right? So if you believe that no one comes in, like there's very few people in this world that will come in and be like, I'm coming in to like make Diana's day horrible, right? Like, no, like there's so few people in the world that will actually do that. So if you think everybody's coming from a good place, you know what I mean? Like then you're able to be more generous, right? You're able to bring more people in with you and kind of continue the journey and be yourself. I think is part of building your own brand. If you try to be two people, I always say, I don't have time to be two Susys. I'm only one. It's just, I'm at work, I'm one way, I'm at home one way, I'm with the kids in one way. All of those things actually now, especially with COVID, blend together, right? So I think, that's it.
That's great to hear that. Consistency, you're right. That's part of building the reputation there. Yeah. What about you, Laurie?
Yeah, I look at brand building in two different lenses. So one is internal, and that's how you show up at work and with your role. And I think you need to be purposeful in how you show up, and agree with Susy. Consistency and as a marketer, consistency and branding of marketing is so important. So the same rules apply to your personal brand. Know what you're passionate about too, and lean into those things and create those opportunities for yourself, but also ensure that you're marketing yourself, right? And what I mean by that is if you did something, if you took a course, like make sure your manager knows or make sure the team knows. Maybe you could do a lunch and learn with the team on that course that you did. It's important that you bring visibility to some of your actions, because if you just sit, with your head down to your work, you could be amazing, but if no one knows, you may not be the first person they think about when these roles come up. So you also need to authentically find a way to make yourself more visible. The other one is externally. So you need to build your brand internally, but externally. And I actually just attended a few weeks ago one of your LinkedIn workshops, Diana, is how to show up on LinkedIn and be purposeful in what you're posting, and making sure you're doing it with a certain amount of frequency. Are you showing up as a specialist in your area? Are you showing your values? So I think it's things that you want to think about. It's not just within your organization, but within your industry. What brand are you building there?
Yeah, that's a great insight, internal, external brand. And something I see quite often, actually, from my experience, just working with a lot of people, especially with experienced leaders or have grown in the same industry or company, sometimes they may have neglected managing their external brand there. And it's important to continue to make sure that we're managing that external brand to help attract those opportunities as well. So I love that in terms of being proactive and managing your brand and being visible. What you just hit there is being the visibility is huge there. So let's talk about the next one here is around interviews. I know both of you probably have done lots of interviews. Susy, you must be doing tons of interviews right now. Like how to stand out as top talent in interviews. Like what do you look for when hiring, and what are the common mistakes that you see there? So Susy, why don't we start with you here?
Sure. I wrote down, I was thinking about this yesterday, and I think if you want to have a really good interview, like number one, I think you need to be energetic, right? And happy. People like happy people, right? You're interviewing someone that you're going to spend time with. I heard an example the other day. I can't remember which company it is. And one of their questions is, would you want to spend a Sunday in the office with this person by yourself? right? And I think that's a good one, right? Because you think like yes or no about that, right? So yeah, and I think, you know, it's about being energetic, happy. Another thing I always look for is being clear and concise, because also, again, I'm going to be working with this person, right? Like if they're on my team, I need to know that they're logical, you know, that they can, you know, the way that they tell their story. Like what my number one interview question is always, you know, tell me the Lori story. You know, Lori would tell me an awesome story. I can hear her. You know what I mean? Like Lori's a student. You know, I can feel like you're a lifetime student of everything you're doing, and you know how you progress. Like I like your story, right? And I think that you know, when someone tells you your story, their story, you can say, hey, they actually think logically. They go chronological, or no, they're not. They're all over the place. I can't even actually understand what they did, or they picked out weird things in their story to tell you, and you're like, that was unusual, right? Like why would someone tell me these specific things? Like they obviously in their head had a strategy. Like I wanted to tell these things in the interview, but it comes across as, you know, very disconnected, right? So I think that, yeah, like one, be happy, be energetic. Two, be very clear and concise, right, in terms of your storytelling. And then I was thinking, what's the other one? Oh, and then the last thing I always look about is their career journey. Like, you know, I do look at like the resumes and think like if they show continuous progression, right? Like if you've been at a company for a long time and you're thinking, oh, could I jump to somewhere else? For me, I always love those people that are 2 years in one job, then they move laterally to another job and learned another area. They went up in a job. It shows that they're an excellent performer. If you can progress in your own company and keep on showing that progression, you know, or in different jobs in different companies, I always look for that. Those are my favorite resumes, right? Because it shows that you are a versatile player, that you're courageous, that you're interested and curious in doing different things.
Yeah, that's great advice, guys. I hope you guys are taking notes of this. Like I'm hearing storytelling, communications, being clear and concise. And by the way, this is something I always work on, like as an interview coach, is being clear and concise, being succinct, so that people can also take good notes and remember what values you bring to the table there. And I love about what you're saying, Susy, is around the progression and also performance to showcase that you do add value and that you're a high performer there. So, Lori, what else do you have to add here?
Yeah, no, great tips, especially following an HR specialist. But some other things that I have to add on is when you show up in the interview, make sure that you've done your homework on the job, the role, maybe even your interviewer. Look them up on LinkedIn. Maybe you have a connection to them that you can build that relationship with. But you know, when I ask a question about why do you want to work here, or, you know, when someone says, well, it's a global bank, I love global banking. I want them to go deeper, right? And it kind of shows me that's a surface level answer. And when people give deeper, more thoughtful, purposeful answers, that's when I know like they've done their homework. And I'm also seeing, how did you prepare for this? Because I feel that, you know, they're going to apply that same rigor to their job. And I want to know that people are top performers. That's what we're looking to hire. So they need to showcase that. And then the other thing, just kind of echo what Susy said about, you know, the way you show up, your personality, your positivity. I don't know if Susy would concur with this, but I do, you know, when you hear like, oh, people know in the first 5 minutes, if you're the candidate or a top candidate, and I do feel that, you know, when someone comes into a room, I know by their resume that they're specialized or skilled, they can do the job. But at that point in time, I'm really seeing what the fit is on our team. Making sure that they can add value. They'll bring positivity to the group. They're going to help progress us and make us a stronger team. So it's just come as your authentic self is my other advice.
Oh, great advice there. First impression matters. How you show up matters. And I remember when I recruited at Google, like one thing they talked about a lot about is that fire in that belly, which is what you guys saying, like the energy, the enthusiasm, the passion that you want this job, that you're excited about this job. And that is so key, that hunger as well, to showcase that you care about this there. And one thing you really highlight, Lori, is around the preparation, which is a great way to differentiate, right? When you go above and beyond to do that prep, you know that, you know, it gives you a sense of their work ethic there. So Inthida, you're back. Can you hear us? Can you want to join as well?
Yes. Great comments from Susy and Lori. I would just say too, the other thing I look for is whether or not they understand the question I'm asking in terms of what am I really trying to assess here. So if I'm trying to ask a question like, tell me about a time where you had a difficult, like, I want to know if they understand what is the quality that I'm trying to assess and whether or not they can explain a good example of what they did. I think it's really important that the person who's being interviewed really listens to what the interviewer is asking, because the underlying could be like, when I'm asking about teamwork, is it like, did you work well in teams? Were you able to manage teams? And so being able to kind of get a sense of what I'm trying to get to, and then covering that in their example, it shows me that they can tie things together without me saying it out loud. Yeah.
Oh, that's great advice. Like understanding the question, actually answering the question, and be able to connect the dots is really important there.
Yeah.
Amazing. So the next question here is how to be confident and make your voice heard, how to influence and gain buy-in, or how to get a seat at the table. So one thing that we've been talking about like lately is, a lot of people have, they said studies show at least 70% of people face like, imposter syndrome in their lifetime. So I want you guys to talk a little bit in terms of confidence as you move up in your career there. So Lori, why don't we start with you?
Preparation.
That's what I was going to say.
Okay. So I think it's so important to be prepared. So if you're going to a meeting, knowing your information, knowing the stats, knowing the numbers, knowing the insights, it is going to be so beneficial because, when you take away the subjectivity, and I'll use that in marketing, let's not talk about the subjectivity of it, but bringing facts, you will be more confident if you go in prepared, right? Think about the questions they're going to ask. Think about your stakeholders you're trying to sell to, and anticipate what their challenges might be, and be proactive in speaking about them. So I think that's going to bring your voice to the table, and just be confident in that. And I will share with you, even our senior level executives, when they're presenting to global, they are prepping for 2 weeks for an hour presentation on a business that they know so well. So this doesn't go away, right? This is throughout your whole career. And I can tell you it does make a difference. And these people stand out as top talent who know their numbers and know the data.
Oh, I love that. I love that. See, even you're seeing, you got to prepare. Susy, what about you?
Yeah, I agree. And I was trying to put in the chat before that, Lori likes when people are prepared because she's always prepared, right? And it's all about putting the time in and being prepared. I agree with you 100% that is a key to being confident, because you can be confident if you know your stuff. The only other thing I would add to what you said is that, if you're going into a meeting, you don't have to wait for that meeting and prepare just for that meeting. You have to think about who's going to be there with you, right? If you want to be confident, like you could have side conversations before that. If you know someone is a tough sell, or you want to, kind of win people over on a certain topic, socialize beforehand. Like, don't just go in and wait for the big meeting, right? Like, I think there's a lot of opportunities before that to kind of, start dropping breadcrumbs about your idea, test it out with different people, and then bring that to the meeting too. Like, say, hey, I know my stuff, and also I've tested it with these different groups or stakeholders, and here's some stuff that I'm hearing that sounds good, here's some other stuff that doesn't sound as good, and just be honest where you're at. Because I think you don't need to know everything. No one's ever going to know everything. Like, if someone told you they knew everything, that would be like shocking, right? Like, you go in, you know what you know, and then you ask for help in areas that you don't know. So I think that helps you be more confident if you take that pressure off yourself, right, a little bit.
Oh, I love that advice. Essentially, you gotta build alliances here, right? Inthida, anything to add?
I think we talked a lot about like the preparation, the what, and I think another element would be like the how you want to show up in the meeting and how you want to kind of facilitate or lead the conversation. A lot of people don't think about the how, and I think if you spend a little bit more time in terms of, like you said, socializing, or even like, what is the intention that you want them to feel or leave with, and how do you want to lead this meeting? Like, how will you facilitate this meeting? I think if you spend a little bit of time thinking through that, then you'll have a more successful, more confident outcome, and yourself, you're going to be just more confident because you thought through that.
Yeah, that's great advice. 93% of your message impact is based on your nonverbal, how you say what you say. Only the 7% is based on words. So when I do preparation as well with clients for interviews, we got to first get on what do you want to say? But then majority of the time is like practicing, how do you want to say it? How do you want to get people excited and buy into why they should hire you? So that's great advice there as well. So guys, what's resonating with you? I want to hear from the audience. What questions do you have? What are your learnings so far? We have a couple more questions that we'll be wrapping up here. So I want to talk about leadership here. This is panels on women in leadership. How do you develop and hone your leadership style? And, want to add me how to develop executive presence? Did you have a mentor or coach or sponsor to guide you in your career there. So Lori, why don't we start with you there?
Sure. So yeah, I have had a mentor throughout my career who's been absolutely fantastic, and I've been very vocal about what my vision is and where I want to go to, and she's helped me kind of recognize the gaps. And there will be other people in rooms too who know where my gaps are and what I'm trying to work on, and afterwards I will ask them for advice. So if I'm trying to show up a certain way, afterwards we'll kind of regroup and do kind of a post-mortem on that and get learnings and always evolve. As I said, I'm kind of always evolving, always learning. But being authentic, as you said, I think when I was more junior in my career, you see people and you're like, oh, I should do that. But you'll be at your best when you're at your authentic self. And that's when you'll show up, and that's when you will be able to best showcase yourself. And yeah, that's my big advice, is to be authentic, but also have people in the room who can support you and give you feedback.
That's great advice. Susy, what about you there?
In terms of honing my leadership style, I think I've been really privileged to be a part of a lot of leadership programs in my career. So I am like very supportive of this. I think that you have to research them though, right? I think 50% of leadership programs fail, right? They're very hard to stand up in the sense of getting that buy-in and getting ingrained in cultures. And I think that I benefited from that greatly, right? Being put in roles at a, very early in my career that were huge responsibility, and having people role model for me, like different leaders across the board, right? Different countries, different levels, different areas, always picking me up. Like it was especially GE has, like, if you Google GE, like they are known for their coaching and their leadership, right? So if you look at what they've done, like the pride of every leader there is developing someone on their team. Like if that's the part of the culture, right? That stays with you, right? And I think that's really developed me. And I would say the other thing is practice. So, you have to let people take a chance to do it. And I think as ourselves, we have to practice being leaders. Like at some point in our career, you start with a couple people on your team, or just even informally leading folks. Put your hand up, volunteer for United Way and organize an event at work, right? And I think it's great exposure for someone to learn about some different areas, and also to meet lots of different people and gain those skills, right, in a safe environment. So those are just some examples, but I think, practice makes perfect. We're never going to be perfect every single time. And even now, I say, especially with COVID, we have to be forgiving with one another, right? Like not everything's going to be perfect. Yeah. We're in our scenario, we're in a startup environment. It's not going to be perfect. That's not the goal, right? And then it's not going to be perfect. Like everybody's going to try their best. And that's true in every job. So if you're forgiving with other people as you're training them as leaders, or you becoming a leader, or you working with your own leader, give people a break. Everybody's trying their best. So that's my advice. Yeah,
that's great advice. I know what you just wrapped up with, just being forgiving, understanding, especially in today's environment. We don't know what people are going through. And, sometimes we just don't know. They may be having a bad day, and it's so important to have grace. And even now, I have to tell you guys, even though I can say Inthida has been having tech issues, but she's been still showing up with grace, with
smiling.
Calmness. She's still smiling. I know deep down it's oh my God, but I just want to acknowledge, it happens with tech. And you had to roll with it. This is what happens with going live. And so I want to acknowledge that here. So Inthida, what else do you have to add here?
Well, I've been really lucky in the sense that I feel like I've been surrounded by really a whole bunch of amazing leaders. And to me, the way I learn is to really observe them and see, what do I like about them? How do they communicate? How do they lead their team? So a lot of it has been observation, but also, having people in my corner who supported my growth and development, kind of like what Lori said. If you mention it to someone else where you want to go and what your aspirations are, you're going to have a lot of supporters. And so I've been really lucky in that sense that I've had some great coaches and sponsors, I would say champions of people who always kind of looked out for me for opportunities, but also kind of telling me, oh, this is where I would see you need a little bit of improvement. I remember when I was early in my career, I didn't speak as loudly, right? And it seemed like I would come out as, not as poised or confident. And it was just a little adjustment that I needed to make. And all of a sudden it was okay, here we go. And I think it's a journey, honing your leadership style and developing as a leader is a continuous learning journey. You learn from your team, you learn from other people, and you're constantly kind of trying to evolve yourself and adapting. And I think the key to being, what I find is the key to being a good leader is to adapt to other people. And really that's, to me, it's like if you're able to adapt to your audience and your people and your team members to get the best out of them, know their style, then you're kind of one step ahead. That's what I would leave with.
Great advice. Hashtag adaptability. Studies have shown right now, adaptability is one of the top skills employers look for, especially in today's climate right now. So thank you for saying that. So let's answer a couple audience questions here. We have a question from the audience around in what ways you begin building your brand. Is it writing posts, articles, website, creating videos, blogging? I don't think it's any of that. For you guys, I have to answer. It's not that. So I wanted to talk for how you guys let's see about building your brand, like at work there. So Lori, why don't you start here?
Sure. I want to pick up on something Susy said, and I do think that that's how I built my brand at a more junior level. Is I leaned into those other opportunities like United Way, the Women's Network, creating programs for them and just stepping up. So maybe there wasn't a role available at that time, but I stepped into other ways to showcase myself. For United Way, for example, I didn't just walk around and do Jean Day and ask for, $5 on Friday. I actually created an online auction for the first time that raised, over $10,000. So that got me visibility, right? And I didn't do it for the visibility. I did it because I was passionate. I did it because it aligned to my values of helping out the community. But it did also showcase myself. It was a great way. And I often encourage people, there's people who come and say, I want a promotion, I want to move to the next level. You also need to find these opportunities or make these opportunities for yourself. And I love what Susy said. And I do think that helped build my brand, and that type of behavior I continue to do today in other ways and show up. And I think that's been consistent. So going back to our consistency, but you need to lean in and create those opportunities. And that's what I've done.
Amazing. Getting involved, putting yourself out there, giving back, adding value there. Anything you want to add, Susy or Inthida?
Yeah, I think for me, it's all about creating impact and results, right? Like, how can you show up with your talents and passion to create more impact and results? And how can you be inspired to do your best every day, kind of like stepping in where you see opportunities? That's really the brand you want to build. I think at the end of the day, we all want to feel good, feel like we're making an impact, we're making a mark, and it's to look for those opportunities and to play a role in wherever you see that you can make a difference.
I love that. Having a heart, right, that you want to give back and make a difference there. Yeah. Susy, did you want to say something?
No, I think you guys have covered it off. Yeah, I agree. Okay. It's about being consistent and driving results. Like your brand it's the actions speak louder than words, right?
Exactly.
So it's what you do and what you deliver will define who you are. And the only thing I would add is that as well, that don't worry about it. Thinking about like, how am I going to build my brand, right? Like just consistently deliver, just be present in what you're actually doing. If you do a good job of what you're doing right now and just focus on whatever you're doing, whatever task it is, setting up a meeting, make sure it's not a mess, right? Like all of these things take it's a craft, right? Like you could be doing a huge project, take care of it, right? You could be meeting someone for lunch, don't be late, right? Like all of those things build your brand, right? So, but you don't think of it as a brand, just be, respectful, have integrity when you do things, do an A+ job, like all of those things, all those great values.
I'm learning so much about you guys, just doing great work, right? That's what it is. So another question here is, have you had to deal with jealousy from other women in the workplace who try to sabotage your progression or promotion? That's a good question there. Lori, do you want to share?
Sure. I will say no, I haven't had to deal with that. I think, definitely has there been competition amongst my peers and coworkers? Yes. Have we pushed each other, I think, in positive ways? Absolutely. And there's two ladies, who no longer work with me, but, did we challenge each other and push, bring our work to new levels because we both kind of pushed and questioned? Absolutely. But I welcomed it, and there was a mutual respect. So I knew it was coming from a good place, just as they did from me. And we're still very close friends today and big supporters of each other. And I think, you choose who's kind of in your network and who you lean into, and you want to surround yourself with positive people. So I haven't had that, I guess, I haven't had that experience happily.
Any thoughts? You guys are good? Anything you want to add, Susy? No? Okay, I have another question. This is a good question I want to ask here is, how do you deal with difficult colleagues or team members? Oh, that's a good question. Susy, I guess
so
up here.
Yes, sure. So if you have a difficult scenario at work, I call it out, right? Like I think the very first thing to do is, like I said, I don't think people ever wake up and want to be difficult, make your day difficult. No, most people just aren't there, right? So it's just like, it's something usually about a process. It's usually, I always say 99%, it's like a process issue or a misunderstanding, like communication, right? So I would say just talk to them. Like, I know it seems like such basic advice, but it's true. Usually if you have something like that, like, don't tell yourself that negative story of like, oh, and like try to rationalize they're doing this because of this and that. No one has time for that. They're usually just saying something. They maybe just sent an email, or maybe they, go to a meeting and just say something, they're only thinking about it with their own lens, right? Like they're just coming at it like, for, they have to be somewhere at 10 a.m. You're also there. They don't go in and think I'm going to war, right? So I would just say like, hey, it seems kind of like, every time we talk about this, it gets a bit heated, every time we talk about this, like you want to do this, I want to do that. I get it. We're on two different sides here. Like, where do we meet in the middle? Or maybe we could try something else, right? So I think you just call it out right away so that it doesn't build into a thing and more of a dialogue.
Yeah. I want to bring this. That's a good one to build on. Inthida, if you can maybe build on around like working with, what about like demanding bosses or managers are just really, really demanding? What's your advice for that? Because I hear this a lot from a lot of people. If maybe you can comment on that there.
I think it's always difficult to navigate those kind of situations where you, I wouldn't say they're demanding. I think it's if your leadership style or your style and values are not as aligned, then I think it creates kind of friction around how you operate. Because, for me, for example, I like to think like, be respectful, be kind, operate with integrity, with transparency, communicate. And maybe someone else doesn't have the same values. So you, when you need to adjust, I think kind of like to Susy's point, try to talk about it, have the dialogue. It may or may not go well. Usually if you're thinking about what is the outcome that I want for the both of us, like we kind of want to be able to move forward in a positive manner. How can we adjust ourselves, or what can we do a little bit differently to have a better relationship? I think that's the key, is to really come at it as like, how can we both win here? Like, it hasn't worked. What can we do differently? But it is a difficult conversation. I think what you have to remember as well, I think, is, if it continues on too long, and I've had many people come to me as well, where they're like, I'm unhappy. It's been so long. I just can't, I don't like it. What's at risk here is your mental health and how you show up, not only at work, but in other areas of your life. If you're unhappy at work, it's going to show, and it's going to impact your productivity. And if you go home, you carry that with you. And so it has all these impacts throughout. And I think it's important to recognize those signs and be able to say, okay, is it me? Did I do all I can to like work through this? And if it's simply not an alignment, then maybe you need to look for something else that is going to make you more happy and joyful. And people are going to celebrate the way that you are authentically, where you don't have to make it so difficult every day to go to work unhappy.
Yeah, that is great advice. Thank you. So we're going to be wrapping up with 2 more questions. So guys, for those who are here, I want to ask you, what are your biggest takeaways from today, or some like juicy conversations here? So you can just type it in, your biggest takeaways, and what are some of your action items? That'd be awesome. So on my second last question here is how to integrate work and life, how to really juggle it all, especially in today's pandemic environment. Tell us a little bit, what is it like for you today and how are you managing it? So why don't we start with Susy here?
Sorry, just unmuting. So in terms of handling work life during pandemic, I think, you just roll with it. I think it's one of these things where you just walk into this like tidal wave. You're like, all right, I surrender a little bit. So I think you just need to accept it, make the best of the situation, right? Like, what are you going to do? I'll tell you the same thing I tell my kids. I'm like, complaining never solved anything, right? So you can complain all day long, but then we've just wasted our whole day complaining, right? So like in terms of, figuring out the work-life balance. I think the shiny side of COVID is I've never explored more of our like local region, right? I'm sure all of you, more hikes outdoors, more parks, and appreciated it more, right? And I think in terms of the balance, again, like for a long time, I have 2 boys, so they were home during when the school shut down. So I think, I just do my best, like in terms of being a mom, and you feel like, man, I wish I could be with them more. It's too bad. Like they're small and they're like, circling the house. I'm sure a lot of us have had this, but you just kind of make a plan, do your best. It's all you can do, and just know it's an unusual time, I think is probably what I would say for COVID. And just like I said, give people a break. Like, for me, I have my little guy would be on my lap half the time. He'd kind of show up in meetings. Everybody knew Tiago. Tiago came to my meeting once and like lost a tooth. He was like, look at my tooth. And I was like, this is amazing. He lost his tooth. Right. So I think it's just, we're all complete people. We come to work, and the day goes, long, right? Like you integrate your whole day in terms of drop-offs. You integrate your day, whether it's COVID or not, like running kids to different activities or doing something like this as well. Right. It's about managing your time and knowing when it's time to be, all business and, heads down, and versus like family is always important. And I think you have to work for a place that would appreciates that and allows you to be a complete person at work, whatever your scenario is in your personal life.
Oh, that's a great one. That's a good one. Laurie, what about you?
Yeah, I think we've all been through ups and downs of this journey. I have 2 young girls as well. I think 2 things. One, don't put too much pressure on yourself. And I know we all do, but give yourself a break. This is no one's experienced this ever before. So we're all experiencing this together in our own ways, and everyone has been on their own unique journey. So take the pressure off, right? No one's been perfect through this. The other thing that I will say is I've been very fortunate. My husband is a co-partner. He works full time as well, has a very demanding career too. And I'm so fortunate that we both communicate well together, and we both kind of step in when we need to. And then lastly, my last advice is to try and be present where you are, right? So if you're at work, try as best you can to be present there. But when you're at home, be present there and kind of shut off the work, because we do need to put guard. There's too much blurred lines between work and home right now. And at a certain time of the day, you do need to shut it down and give yourself a mental break and spend that time with the family, because I do know people are working later hours, especially mom. You do need to step back, or else you will burn out on both ends.
That's great advice. Yeah.
Just on that, I just wanted to jump back in to give my husband a shout out, because he has been totally helping out. I was like, I didn't go there, and I was listening to Laurie. I was like, Laurie's right. And it's true. You can't do the journey alone. And I would have died during COVID if I didn't have my husband here. We both have demanding careers, and he's really stepped up to help like throughout. So especially and probably with like switching careers during this time too, because there's a ramp up period, especially when you're starting in a new role. Like I'm like really thankful for that. So yeah. Thanks, Laurie, for reminding all of us. Yeah, it is a team effort, and it takes a village, like whatever your home structure is.
Yeah, it takes a village. What about you, Inthida?
No, I think it's been really well covered. I think it's just allowing yourself to be flexible during this time and not putting too much pressure on yourself. I think, to me, I always tell my team members, you have the whole day, do what you need to do during the day to adapt to your family schedule. I know that you're going to deliver anyways, right? If you have to take a break between like 3 and 5 and 6, because you have to go pick up little kids and do all these things, or like make them dinner, and then you come back at a later time, that's not a problem. I think as long as you can deliver what you need to do, we're all adults in terms of like trying to manage our life the best way possible. And I trust that people will do their best. And I think it's also important, like you mentioned before, Laurie, like to mentally shut down or have those moments where you're really present. And I take that very seriously. Like when I'm with my kids, then that's the time. Like you have to be present in those moments and just give them the full attention. Or so I think that's the main thing too. Yeah. It's like find what works for you, and adapt to that. Don't be too hard on yourself when it doesn't work out for a particular day, and just go with the flow. Go with the flow. It's all going to work out in the end.
That's great advice. I love that. Thank you for sharing. I really love that there. So the last question here is, what's your best advice for managing a successful career or job search in 2021? So why don't we start with Lori here?
Always on the hot spot. My best advice is one, if you are looking for a job and you are out of work, I would say keep positive. And I can appreciate, it can be frustrating. It can weigh on you. It can be emotional. But try to, stay positive and keep it, because if you get down yourself, everything else is going to show when you have that phone interview with HR for the first time, when you walk into that interview room. If you don't come in with that positivity, as Susy said, how important that first impression is, you need to keep positive. I know it can be frustrating, but keep with that. And for those other looking to advance their career, as I said, be very intentional in what you want to do. Let people know and create some visibility for yourself on the steps that you're taking.
Yeah, that's great advice. What about you, Susy?
Yeah, I would say be focused as well. When you're looking for a job, in, let's say, our organization, we have, over 200 jobs open right now. If someone comes in and applies to 100 of them, you kind of wonder, what's the strategy here, right? And what do you actually want to do? And what are you really good at, right? What are you even passionate about? Causes a lot of confusion, right? So I think for yourself, like in terms of just being focused about that with different companies, and just the lines of, or the criteria, like what Diana said earlier, like what's the criteria for your next role? Make sure you're really clear on that and apply to roles accordingly, right? And be prepared. All of that takes time. So don't do a broad brush or the peanut butter approach and spread across everything. Like really go and zoom in, right? And be your best self in that. Like go really hard in one lane.
Yeah, great advice. What about you, Inthida?
I don't know if it was talked about earlier, but I think it's important to know yourself really well and to know what you really want, right? Your next step or your next career. So I always find it difficult to talk to someone who wants like an informational interview and they have no clue how to, like, what they're good at. Like, to me, that's like the fundamental. So I think definitely be clear about like what you're good at, what you like, be able to express it and communicate it. And I think talk to a lot of people, network with a lot of people, stay positive, ask for advice, get connections to open up doors for you. But again, to me, it comes down to getting clear on who you are and what your value is so that you can articulate it better to other people when they're asking you, like, how can I help you? What kind of role you're looking for, right? And kind of continue to develop throughout this time as you're looking for your next opportunity. Like, what else can you do to round up your experiences, or what kind of books can you read to get even more into your domain of expertise? I think those are key things you could do.
Oh, such great advice. Oh, this was so good, guys. We're wrapping up on a bang here. I love this so much. I'm going to summarize some of my key lessons that I've learned, my top 3 here. I'm going to call it my ABC. Just from hearing today's talk and the show here, the 3 things that come to mind is, 1 is really your attitude. Your outlook in life, and after, I think that's really key. I can hear it from all 3 speakers here, is the way they choose to show up in life really drives, the way they, do things there. The second is around being bold, being brave in managing your career, that you got to be proactive in going after what you want, expressing that to others so that you can get those opportunities there. And the C here is around creating connections and conversations. You can't do this alone. You have to develop relationships so that people know like what you want, what you stand for, and what really matters to you. So those are my key takeaways. And I really want to thank you all 3 for coming on here. I'm so proud of you all. Like, just sharing your story, but just seeing the progression in your career of all your achievements, and also giving back to others. Like, the reason why I brought you on board is, you all care, not only in your own career, but you care about others and you want to make a difference in this world. And I really want to acknowledge that. And I am so honored that I can call you my friends as well.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Diana.
Thanks for having
wonderful. Thanks for having us.
Diana, congratulations on your 10 years.
Yes.
Oh, thank
Yes.
you. I know. I can't believe it's 10 years in my business and I'm just having fun. I feel like I'm just getting started to take things to the next level.
So no, it's amazing.
Amazing.
You did. I love your ABCs.
Thank you for typing that,
Perfect
Simran. Great way to wrap out. I just want to give a huge shout out for Simran for just helping me manage behind the scenes as well in the chat room. I hope you guys really enjoy this. This is the end of season 1 here. Really, really appreciate all your support. I'm going to be taking a break next month, but I will be appearing on other guest interviews. You're going to see me go on LinkedIn, Get Hired Live again with Andrew Seaman on LinkedIn News. The last time I did it, over 85,000 views. So I'm hoping to break that record again next month to add a lot of value to a global audience. So thank you so much again, and stay tuned for our upcoming events. You can check out the replay on YouTube and check out my website at mymarketability.com/events for future events there. All right, you guys take care. Thank you so much, and I'll see you soon.
Thank you.
Bye. Nice meeting you, ladies.
Bye, everyone.
Everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.